It's time for the biggest non-league football debate in the country. Search official BOTN and get involved with tonight's show.
So we're back for 2019. Very good evening and welcome to this week's non-league football debate. Delighted to say that Jody Brown, Frank Wilson, Jim Cooper and Alex Narey from the non-league paper join us for the debate this evening. Plenty to talk about from the Christmas period, a really busy Christmas period. We'll start with the headline, Alex, in your paper, which caused quite a stir at the weekend. The headline is out of control. It's the clashes that the Chesterfield fans had with Nathan Ashmore on the weekend.
Well, I mean, there are some headlines that I write, and I wake up on a Sunday morning and I think to myself, was that accurate? Was that, a true reflection of the story? Chesterfield fans were completely out of control on Saturday, and the club identified that by making a statement. And that we fully back what we wrote and what we reported on. We reported on a statement of fact, and these guys will know, as managers and former players, the pitch is your area, and it's black and white. Fans cannot go onto the football pitch. It is a criminal offence, and some of the footage from what we saw on Saturday was shocking. So I'd be interested to hear what these guys have got to say as managers and guys that have played the game, because it's not acceptable. And fair play to Chesterfield, because they've actually come out and identified the problem, and they've put 3 banning orders in place. But they face an FA rap, I'm pretty sure, and police investigations are ongoing. So very, very worrying times for the club. But it's black and white. You cannot go on the pitch. It's totally out of control and unacceptable. We'll talk about the incident in a minute. If you haven't seen it, we'll let you know exactly what happened, and do have a read of the incident in the paper. But they're on social media. After you put this up, there were a few people commenting about why this should have been on the front page, and this is just simply reporting the facts of what happened. Well, we're reporting facts. I would run the story on the front page unless it was a statement of fact. And this was actually written as well by the Chesterfield reporter, who's close to the club, who's got close links to the club and the community, and he's not writing a story without serious foundation. Steve Tevet, who was the Ebbsfleet reporter, who wasn't there doing the game for me, also contacted the paper through social media, and so we knew that this had happened. And with the greatest respect to Steve Tevet, who's a fantastic journalist, if he'd have filed the story, I would have had second thoughts about running it. But because it had come from a Chesterfield source, it's an absolute no-brainer. You cannot ignore a story of that magnitude. You read the statement from the Chesterfield chief executive, Graham Bean, some of the words that he's using. He's talking about racial slurs and altercations with players. He's hinting at points deductions. You can't ignore that story. Yes, they came back from 3-0 down. Yes, it was a fantastic game, and good luck to them in that respect. And I do feel sorry for the vast number of decent Chesterfield fans. But the bottom line is that the small minority of mindless idiots that have ruined it. And I don't think the club will face a point deduction. I think that's a step too far. But they've got a new manager coming in now, John Sheridan, and the first thing he's going to be looking at is this kind of stuff. So it's a big, big worry. And as for Nathan Ashmore and what the fans are saying, he was winding us up, he was inciting the crowd. Do me a favour, seriously. Football fans throw abuse at referees, they throw abuse at players, but the minute you give it back, or the minute you counter their abuse, they're up in arms. And I just think to myself, there's absolutely no justification whatsoever for running onto a pitch, getting in someone's face, manhandling someone. Whether he assaulted Nathan Ashmore, it's not fully clear as yet, but what he did do was he approached the player while he was on the pitch. And these guys will know, as managers, that you do not go on the pitch. That's their area. I mean, I'm a journalist, and I'm reluctant to go on the pitch before a game. I don't see it as my place to be. So it's not even. There's no debate as far as I'm concerned. And I was actually quite you know, I bit back a couple of times on Twitter on Sunday because I felt so strongly about it, and it's an absolute black and white story. Criminal offence to go on the pitch. You can't do it, and you shouldn't do it. And Chesterfield will pay the price. And as I say, fair play to the club, because the club have identified there's a problem and are dealing with it swiftly and very well.
Frank, we talk about the position of this on the front page, and rightly so. If this was, we saw it in the Premier League with Raheem Sterling. It's been an issue there. It's obviously an issue in the non-league game, and we'll go on to talk about that. But the fact that this is the news in and above the game, if it was in the Premier League, it would be on all the papers, because it would be the facts, as Alex said, that went on during that game, which really supersede anything that went on in footballing terms.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when incidents like this happen, I think that what we all hope the outcome is that whether it's front page national coverage in non-league paper or on Twitter or social media, what you want to happen from that is for incidents like this to cease to exist.
Yeah.
And I think that what we're doing is bringing it to the forefront of everybody's attention the best way that we can. And these sorts of things should be retweeted and sent out on social media. And, you know, like Alex said, fair play to Chesterfield for taking complete ownership of it. And when we had Nathan on the show, you know, one of the things and one of the topics that we talked about in terms of how do we eradicate these sorts of things from football completely is by not just publishing a story one week and then sweeping it under the carpet. We've got to try and do our utmost to try and make sure that there is a general awareness of these sorts of things that are happening that we don't want to happen, and do what we can to stop it.
What's important as well is that the paper is not, in a way, we're not saying anything's happened. We're just reporting on a statement that's been made by the club. So in no part of this article do we say a fan ran onto the pitch and manhandled Nathan Ashmore. We wouldn't do that because that's dangerous territory. And I wrote that headline before, and I edited that piece before I'd seen the footage. We're just reporting on allegations that have been made, and that's the important thing. And we're duty bound to do that. We've reported on other serious allegations this season, notably Aldershot playing Ebbsfleet in, I think it was the second or third game of the season. There was a racist allegation against an Aldershot fan towards Ebru Adams. So, you know, we follow the stories through, and we report on statement of fact. And just really, really quickly on Nathan, you know, the final point I've got to make on him is that we sat here 2 or 3 weeks ago, we put him in our team of the year, and he's a fantastic goalkeeper, and I watched him a lot last year. Does he time waste? Yeah, he does. He does time waste, but name me a goalkeeper who doesn't. Time wasting is a dark art, it's a grey area, and quite frankly, everybody hates it unless your team's doing it in the 93rd minute, protecting the 1-goal lead. So there is no justification for what went on when that equalising goal went on, and you know, I'm pretty sure Chesterfield will feel the force of the FA, I'm pretty sure.
Jim, the incident brings obviously what happened in the Premier League to mind with Raheem Sterling. It's been a big talking point before Christmas. In your experience over the last couple of years, is this something that needs to be brought to the attention in the non-league game? Is there a problem in the non-league game as much as there is in the Football League that perhaps doesn't quite get mentioned?
I think it's probably more dangerous in non-league, if I'm being brutally honest, because it's not policed, it's not stewards as well as it would be in professional football. And I think that on this actual point, I do think the FA needs to actually deal with this situation and its isolation. Look at the facts, look at the video, the evidence that obviously we've probably all seen on social media. It is a criminal offence, obviously, to enter the field of play during a football-associated football match. But if Alex, if the non-league paper did not put this into the newspaper, it would probably get brushed under the carpet and dealt with as just another thing that's gone on in non-league football. Now, at some point, in the future, this could escalate even more, and someone could get really badly physically assaulted. And I think if you don't deal with this now, I agree. I think the club have been magnificent in the way they've dealt with it, and in such a short period of time as well. But the FA, in my opinion, need to have a good look at this and actually do something about it.
When you talk about the Jim said about policing and the stewarding and the way it works, we're talking about National League level here. We look at the non-league game right the way down to the steps 3 and 4. That potentially could be more of a problem at those levels to get access to the pitch and to get access to the players.
Yeah, it's been well documented what I said about my experiences. I don't think it's well enough policed. I don't think the officials take enough leadership and ownership in those situations either. And it can become a dangerous place. I think, obviously, there's absolutely no place for racism, and it's disappointing every time we hear about it. But it's important to remember that there's all kinds of prejudices, there's all kinds of threats made towards people of all races, sexualities, genders, everything. And it can become a horrible place. So yeah, clubs need to control their fans, and that's why it's so pleasing Chesterfield have come out straight away. I think that paints them in a really good light. Not all clubs do that. Normally what they do is the report comes out, they batten down the hatches, deny everything. Unfortunately, whoever reports it always gets a little bit of negative criticism. And, as I know myself from my experiences, you speak out, certainly if you speak out nationally in the paper, there's always going to be some criticism, but 100% it's an issue within football. Some clubs manage it better than others, and generally the higher you go up, the better it's policed. So that's why it's so surprising that people ended up on the pitch at Chesterfield, and I haven't seen the incident, so I don't want to speculate, but the rumours of actually making contact with a keeper, physical contact, is really, really worrying, because that could be anything. That could be a knife, a bottle, anything. It could really get out of hand.
It's also just very worth noting that half an hour before we did this story, we had a front page story all laid out, and it was John Sheridan going to the club, and the headline was "Thanks Sherry Much," which is a terrible pun, but so we prepared a story, a feel-good story, a positive story, but unfortunately, as soon as we got wind of this, and I got wind of it by the Chesterfield reporter who phoned me up personally and said, listen, there's a big story breaking here and you need to know about it, and I'll send you the full statement. So we've got absolutely no regrets. I'm very, very happy and comfortable that we ran it, and it's something that we certainly couldn't sweep under the carpet, and nobody else should as well.
No.
It's very easy for us to sit here and say, that as we do with various topics, there's a problem and it needs to be fixed and more needs to be done, but how should more be done, specifically in non-league, to tackle these kind of problems?
Well, I mean, for me, I think that the FA need to communicate with the police and establish how they've dealt with that issue in the professional game, because if the police are the professionals and how to deal with crowd control. You see in professional game now, there's very, very few police officers within a stadium now, and they go with stewards now because it's a more cost-effective route. But the FA need to speak to the police, they need to speak to the clubs, there need to be even a new FA charter in relation to the way that they have to police their own games to ensure these things don't happen.
And as far as clubs are concerned, budgets are small non-league. When we look a bit lower, perhaps on the National League, is it about perhaps a new way of education? We've spoken about this in the Premier League, about how clubs and people need to be educated, fans need to be educated, but supporting clubs to deal with things like this. When we talk to many clubs, they struggle to deal with perhaps the day-to-day running of a match day. So to deal with incidents like this, is it about perhaps the FA lending more support in educational terms?
I think the best thing to do is to continually report it. When these incidents happen, make sure it gets out, make sure it gets exposure. Because believe me, the club will be embarrassed. Every club will be embarrassed. Most support bases will be embarrassed, and I think they almost begin to self-manage themselves. You don't want that sort of exposure. But what tends to happen is it does get swept under the carpet, or it's localised into just the region where it's happened. Whereas when it goes in a national newspaper, it does have an effect, and I think it will have a long-term impact. And I think all these incidents of racism, of any sort of physical abuse, over the top sort of chanting from the stands, where sometimes it can get too personal. I think if these things are exposed, they will gradually deteriorate.
I think as well, what clubs shouldn't do is wait for an incident to happen at their football club before they then try and deal with a way of stopping it. So I think that what we should be looking at is, whether it's off the back of a major incident or not, I think all clubs should have a general awareness like what we're saying tonight, but they should be making strides to already, even if they've got a perfect record of no incidents or nothing, you know, that they're considered to be a friendly club, whatever it might be. I think that everybody should be doing more to make sure that it doesn't happen, so that you're not then reacting to something that happens within your football club.
We'll talk a lot more about this in the next couple of weeks, and we do hope to get Nathan Ashmore onto the show as we look more into racism in specifically non-league football. Plenty more to talk about tonight. Do get involved in the debate across social media. Next we're going to move on to the winners and losers of a really busy Christmas period. It's traditionally many ups and downs across Christmas. We'll get to the FA Cup next, but looking at the leagues, and let's take a look at the National League table to start with. Busy period in the National League.
Well, yeah, you talk about winners and losers. On Boxing Day, when I saw that 5-1 scoreline at Wrexham beating Salford 5-1, I thought, wow, I really did fear for Salford then. And then on the following Saturday, they lost as well, I think, to Barrow. So they lost 4 games on the spin, 5 actually, if you count the FA Trophy defeat in the first round. So, and at that point, I was actually fearing for Graham Alexander, the Salford manager, because I know how much Salford are going for this to get out of the National League and into the Football League. They want to get through this bottleneck and into the Football League, which is where they believe they belong and where their finances probably belong. I just felt, you know, he's now got 2 make or break games ahead of him, Wrexham and Leyton Orient away, and they've turned them both over, and they've gone from potentially being 10 points behind Orient to being 2 points behind, and they've slipped into 3rd place now because Solihull Moors had a great win last night. But it was fantastic, and I've said all along that I think Salford have got the squad and the pulling power to get people to that football club if need be, and to put their foot down for the promotion charge. But yeah, it's been a fantastic few weeks. And in the National League North, you know, you look at Stockport, they're flying through, and Torquay and Woking having a bit of a head-to-head tussle in National South. So great festive period, loads of drama.
And for you, Jody, being involved in it as well, has it been exciting to be involved in such a busy period?
Yeah, it's hectic. The 5 games in, I think, 13 days. So it's testing. You've got to have a big squad. Your players have got to be durable. It's a mental test as much as a physical test. So yeah, it's a great time to be involved. But the clubs with the strongest resources are best equipped for that period. I just think it's worth mentioning Dover. When Andy Hessenthaler went in there, he left Eastleigh. They were in quite a predicament, second bottom, I think. And I think over the Christmas period, 4 or 5 wins out of 6 games, taking them well clear of relegation. And he's doing a fantastic job, obviously.
It's one of those periods, Jim, isn't it, when you go into it as a manager that you know that it can have a real bearing on what will happen towards the end of the season with so many games in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's a very, very important period. We'd all agree with that, I think. And like, you know, you've got fingers crossed you're not going to pick up injuries or suspensions. But for me, I found it quite interesting that certainly in the National League that, you know, like as Alex said in relation to Salford's form over the Christmas period, although they won their last 2 games, including beating Leyton Orient, etc. Orient themselves, who were top of the league, had an awful Christmas period. I went to see the game against you know, Jody's Dagenham, and Dagenham deserved to win that game as well. So for me, Christmas throws up some funny results, and it is, as you say, a very, very important part of the season, which can really, you know, tell where you're going to come in the rest of the season.
Ebbsfleet as well. Gary Hill's got them going. There was a lot of departures. and it was a bit of a rocky period, and you didn't know what way it was going to go. They put a good run together.
Yeah,
and
10 out of 12 over Christmas.
touching distance of the playoffs now. So
they're doing what they did last
spell.
year. Actually, they started very slowly first half of the season before Christmas, and then they got themselves into position in January, and just pushed it home and just started chipping away at that top 7.
They're
So
currently
yeah,
ninth at the moment, aren't they?
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
They've
So
got goals. They've got goal power in Kedwell, Cheek, Cody McDonald's coming, Corey Whiteley.
Yep.
So they're always going to be winning games.
And we take a quick look at the National League South table, the top half, and do you see that when you look at the likes in there? Obviously, Torquay leading the way, Woking as well. And we'll come on to the FA Cup in a moment. The Concord Rangers and Billericay, so much gone on at that club over the last couple of months. Is that the teams that you think will be up there at the end of the season? Is there still a bit of a twist in the tail?
It's an exceptionally tight league. I think it's a tough one to call. You lose 2 games, you're 16th. You win 2 games, you're 4th. Really, really tough one. But I personally think it will come down to Torquay and Woking. Gary Johnson's just showing what a good, experienced manager can do. He's gone in there. Torquay didn't make a great start, but since he's been there, I can barely remember them losing a game. And they're in imperious form. Woking, hopefully the FA Cup won't sidetrack them. Obviously they're playing this evening against Welling. It'll be an interesting game. But yeah, I think it will come down to those 2. Chelmsford City have put a really good run in of late. I think they've won 4 or 5 on the bounce. Look to be getting stronger at an important time. Another big club. It'd be interesting, but it's hard to see past Torquay and Woking.
yeah, those 2 look a notch above, and you start to, when it gets to January, February. I mean, they're edged clear now, but I think it'll be a 2-horse race between those 2. And Woking, I think, have got 2 games in hand because of all the cup runs that they've had. So yeah, I mean, I agree though. Gary Johnson, what a job he has done there, and they needed somebody like him to go in there and you know, just get people in order, just get the football club in order, the playing side, you know, in the right direction, and that'll be a great tussle. It really will.
And the National North table as well. You mentioned, Jody, about the South being tight. That those 2 divisions are renowned for you know, things being able to change very quickly, and certainly some good teams leading the way in the North as well.
Yeah, well, we were talking about it earlier. I'd say pound for pound, the National North is the toughest league, not just in non-league football, but in the country. It's ridiculously tough. And some of the clubs that you've got down there, like York and Stockport are on a charge now, as I just said. It's such a tough division to get out of, and you know, the likes of Southport, Chorley, Bradford Park Avenue, Kidderminster, who blow hot and cold. So yeah, it's a tough one. I just got a good eye on Stockport, got a good feeling for them this year. I think they've gone 7 or 8 unbeaten, with 6 of those wins. So you know, you're pulling in a fan base of 4,000 each week. They've got the muscle to get out of that league. So but it is really, really tough down there, and once you slip down there, it's really, really difficult to get out of.
Definitely going to be a cracking second half to the season in the Vanarama leagues for sure. Let's have a look at the Bostik Premier Division, a league that you 2 gentlemen know well, and Haringey Borough, who apparently we don't give enough credit to, are some way clear, 8 points clear now of Kingstonian. A good win for Kingstonian as well at the weekend, but it's a really intriguing top of the table, and let's give some credit to Haringey Borough then.
Fantastic so far, fantastic.
And it's a big surprise, really, for a newly promoted team.
Yeah, of course it is. But you know, credit where it's fully deserved. I've been sort of keeping an eye on their results, a little bit similar to Woking actually, in terms of they just seem to be winning every single week. And when Woking lost their FA Cup game, some small part of me just thought, I really hope that isn't some sort of psychological, you know, effect that's going to now see them lose a couple of games, which can sometimes happen. And I feel similarly about Haringey. I feel like when they're going to, when they lose their next game, will that then see a period of like Salford are going through at the minute, where they're just going to dip in form, or are they just going to keep it up? But it's outstanding.
It's really interesting that you mentioned about the FA Cup, because when they did have a really good cup run this year, and you'll know this from last season. Sometimes that can detract from your league form, but it hasn't in this case.
Yeah, but I think I even said last year it should propel your league form unless you get a fixture backlog. I think the momentum and the feel-good factor attached to a cup run normally aid you unless, as I say, you get behind on your fixtures, which Haringey haven't. I think it's worth saying with Haringey, I think if you're from that part of the world, it's no great secret. They won the Essex Senior League, they had 1 year in the North, got to the playoffs, just missed out. Next year they got promoted. They had a good FA Cup run last year, obviously us at Haybridge knocked them out in the 4th round qualifier, but they got to Leyton Orient in the 1st round of the trophy. Then this year they've gone and done it again. And if you know their players, they've got a strong squad. That, you know, they've got 2 of the best fullbacks in that division. They've brought Ralston Gabriel back from St Albans, who's one of the outstanding strikers in that league. The goalkeeper, Padgetet, I think his name is, very, very good, comes, takes everything, crosses. They've got strong midfielders, the young boy Charlie Barker from Orient in there. They're a good team. I think if you know that area of the world, it's no great surprise. Yeah, when a team goes unbeaten for 13, it catches everyone's eye, but they've got that within their capabilities. And it's worth saying as well, the management team are very, very good.
I mean, on that side of it as well, I'd like to mention Kingstonians about how well they're doing now. They were certainly, the management team was certainly under pressure at the start of the season. They weren't performing. I think it's widely reported they've got a competitive budget, but fair play to them. You know, they are currently in 2nd place, and in my view, it will be similar to the National South. I think it'll be a 2-horse race between Haringey and Kingstonians.
What about Dorking?
I saw Dorking the weekend at Hornchurch and spoke to Mark afterwards, and you know, he couldn't hide his disappointment about how poorly they played. I just think that the other two, Haringey and Kingstonians, at this point in time, have got more of a settled squad, and I think that they'll probably move on in that league and be very, very hard to beat. I mean, Kingstonians were 20-1 at the start of the season, and they were certainly a good bet. And if I'm going to put my in the chopping block now, I'm going to go for Kingstonians now to win that league and catch up.
I was just going to ask you that question. Tom Loisy probably wouldn't say this, but Haringey Borough 8 points clear. If you were in that dressing room, you were the manager, if you're 8 points clear at this stage of the season, would you be thinking, you know, we should go and
No, I mean, I wouldn't, and I'm sure Tom's not. Tom's a very, very good manager. He's doing really, really well there, and he won't even be mentioning that to the players. He might be speaking that to his coaching staff about, you know, we're in a good position, you know, we've done well so far, there's still a long way to go. And, you know, I think if you start to then, you know, try and put that into the players' heads, it'll go as quickly wrong as, you know, as all the right things you're doing.
They don't drop many points at home, Haringey, and it's a tough place to go.
I think Tom was asked in the build-up to the FA Cup game against AFC Wimbledon, I think he was asked that whether he had 3 games from the minute the draw was made to 3 league games before that. Somebody asked him if he would take 3 defeats in the 3 league games for victory in the FA Cup, and he said he'd bite your hand off for victory in the FA Cup. I bet he's glad he's not done that now, because I think he took 6 points from those games, and since that cup game they've gone 13 unbeaten. 8 points is a big gap.
I mean, fair play to them. I saw them earlier in the season, Haringey. I went to watch them at Potters Bar Town, and it was a pretty poor game. And I was looking at them, and it seemed as if they were literally dipping their toe in the water and just testing how good, you know, the Bostik Premier really was. And I think that they've just become accustomed to the level, the standard there. As you say, as Jody said, they've brought in some very, very good players. They're a strong side, and so they're reaping the rewards of bringing in good players and keeping that momentum going.
Alex, you mentioned a good point there. It's a big gap, and I think I was going to rephrase my question for you. At what point do you have a lead that would mean you'd be extremely disappointed if you didn't get promotion? Is 8 points not quite that lead yet?
Not for me. No, not for me. Too many games to play.
Yeah, there's too many games left. If there's 8 points when you've only got 10 games left, I think then you start thinking this is well within our hands.
I mean, as Alex said in relation to Leyton Orient and Salford, you know, they could have been, is it 10 points?
10 points, yeah.
And now they're 2 points, you know, so.
I'm just going to give a quick mention to Lewis as well, newly promoted side, along with Haringey Borough, and I'm sure the Lewis fans wouldn't forgive us if we didn't say that they're up there in the playoff positions at the moment and doing really well this season. Plenty more to talk about on this week's non-league debate. Don't forget you can get involved across the week on social media. It's official BOTN if you want to leave your comments on the show and get involved in the debate tonight. Right, let's turn our attentions to the FA Cup. Fantastic weekend as always in the FA Cup, and a great weekend for non-league football for a few different reasons.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I was at Woking, 5,500 there. So I think in total that cup runs brought that club close to 400k this season, which is phenomenal, life-changing amount of money for a club like Woking that was really on its knees this time last year. And when Alan Dowson went in there in May, there were no players there for him to work with. I know he took a few with him from Hampton, but he's just worked wonders. And I'm really pleased for Alan Dowson and the club and the fans. It was a good day for them. They didn't disgrace themselves. If truth be told, there was just a gap in quality. Watford lads, young academy players, got the ball down and played around them. And I felt when Woking got possession of the ball, they panicked a little bit and almost looked for that killer pass rather than trying to retain possession. But you can't fault them for that. They just weren't up to the job. In terms of quality, but they never lost their shape. They never lost their endeavour, and it was a good day, and it was a good day for the Woking fans because, like I say, a year ago they couldn't have envisaged having this day. So, you know, good on them, and Barnet as well. A fantastic win. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw that coming, and they're in the hat for the next round. They haven't got the draw they'd probably like, but home tie against Brentford. Who's to say they can't make it through to the fifth round? So, you know, good on both clubs for different reasons.
Yeah, well done to Barnet. The battle of the bees in the next round has been well publicised. Just going back to Woking very quickly, we talk about this a lot on the show. The cup runs and what it gives, especially to teams at that level. Whatever happens for the rest of the season now, will Alan Dowson have done a great job to bring that money into the club?
Absolutely, yeah, of course he would. But I think from his own personal pride, I don't think that he just wants to look back on the season and just be known for, you know, a fantastic FA Cup run.
Yeah.
Said it when we talked about it, you know, last year about their cup run wasn't just beating teams below them in the football pyramid. You know, they went to Torquay, I think, and won there. You know, they had some real tough fixtures to get as far as they got. But I think the confidence and momentum that they have built from such a successful cup run, and we've talked about it already tonight, and what that can do for your league form. That's what they're showing at the minute. You know, and I think that Douse will want to be in and around the playoffs. You know, and sort of keeping up the form that they're keeping at the minute, and not just be a team that finished outside the playoffs but had a good FA Cup run this year.
Yeah.
Is there a debate to be had, and I'll throw this to you guys, I know you were involved in the FA Cup last year, that third round of the FA Cup for a National South team and £400,000 is a chairman would take that over promotion, that kind of success and that kind of money into the club. I know what you're saying about the personal pride to win promotion, not just be remembered for the cup results, but for the club itself, is that not a better achievement?
Well, I think for the chairman, I think probably you're right. I think the chairman will be more than happy to receive all that money, but for the manager, no. I mean, I think Dow said before the game, he said, let's just get the game out of the way, get knocked out, and then let's concentrate on winning this league, or doing well in the league. So, from a manager's point of view, I mean, he'll be proud of what he's achieved, what the club's achieved, and the money that's come in. But no, I think he'll want to kick on with the league campaign.
It's relative to the club, isn't it? You know, the club's expectations. Woking in the National South, their expectation would have been to get promoted. So that's going to remain a priority. I might be wrong in saying this, but didn't they have a good run last year? They beat Peterborough, Woking.
Well, no, they took Peterborough.
Then they went on a bad run.
They took Peterborough to a replay. Off the top of my head, they took them to a replay, and then the wheels fell off.
Yeah,
and
but that's what I mean.
run.
So it's important. It doesn't detract from what they're doing, because Anthony Limbrick started well at Woking.
Yeah.
He started really well, and very quickly it went downhill, and he lost his job. I don't think that's going to happen in this situation. I think Woking are there to stay in the top few places of the National South.
Is it? We were saying Woking are, like you say, relegated last season. They're a big club in the National South, expected to do well this year. For example, if it was Haybridge last year, you'd have swapped perhaps the chance of promotion for an FA Cup third round tie at home to Watford live on BT Sport.
I think we'd have swapped what we had, the first round game at Exeter for promotion. We stayed up in the last day of the season, 66-1 to get promoted. So we had no expectations of getting promoted outside of the building. Obviously, you create your own expectations inside. And the cup run it was life-changing for that football club. You can see they're going from strength to strength now. They're averaging over 350 home crowds. When I first went there, they were averaging 80, 90, 100. So in 2 years, they've trebled their fan base. In terms of the infrastructure within the club, scouting, coaching, the youth setup, it's all grown as a result of the exposure from the FA Cup, and obviously the financial security of clearing all your debts, giving the manager a stronger budget to work with. All the benefits that come with that cup money are there for all to see with Haybridge, and you know it would have been the next thing on their list would have been to get promoted this year. So you know they're in the hat to do that, and hopefully they do.
We'll give the final word on the FA Cup to Barnet. Are we going to see another Lincoln City with a run, perhaps? Quarter-final?
I certainly think they've got a really good chance of that game. A home tie against the Brentford side that they won't fear. And they will have, I suppose what Darren Curry's players will have is a firm eye on the fifth round. They won't be thinking to themselves, oh, it finishes here. And that's what Lincoln had a couple of years ago. Even the Burnley game in the fifth round, they thought to themselves, if we can get past this, there's a huge tie waiting for us, and that's our cup final. So I do think Barnet have a really good chance. I think Darren Curry has got them. I think that he was kind of being moulded for that job. So it was no surprise that he's got the job until further notice. So he's doing his own job interview, to be honest with you. So I just think that maybe it's written in the stars that they can get through this tie and get themselves a fifth round tie. Because I did think when I was watching the draw the other night, I think there were only 8 or 9 teams left in it when they were pulled out, and 6 of those were Premier League sides. So I thought to myself, they're going to land a big one here, but they didn't. That's no disrespect to Brentford, but they won't fear Brentford. They'll have a go, and they'll have an eye on the fifth round for sure.
The thing is, the way the FA Cup's gone now, Championship sides don't play their full strength team in the FA Cup. So it's not detracting from Barnet's achievement or Lincoln's before that, but within your dressing room and on the training ground, you will really think, we've got a chance here. You won't be saying, oh, there's 80 places between us, 60, whatever it is. You'll look, and the chances are they're going to make 7 or 8 changes. They're going to be unsettled, and you'll probably be better prepared for the game. I think there's a real chance. We obviously played Barnet over the Christmas period, and you could see a clear change in the way they played, to be honest. They passed it a lot more than we expected. It was Darren Curry's first game in charge. I've got a feeling he's probably had a positive influence on the players. Maybe the players want him in charge. And I really hope they go and get a good result. But I don't think it would be a massive shock if they do. Like, it wasn't a massive shock they beat Sheffield United. I don't think, when you see the number of team changes that Sheffield United made. So don't be surprised to see Barnet in the fifth round.
Just on Barnet, can I just say, I think it's worthy at this point in time to say, wish John Steele all the best in his retirement. I've been accused many times of using this word too often, but he really is a legend, not only in the non-league game but in football in general, because he did manage it at the Football League level, took Dagenham up through a Wembley playoff final as well, and a lot of people, including Darren, would have learned their trade from playing under and or being in the management with John. So wish him well.
I don't think I've come across or spoken to any players that have got any kind of bad words or malice towards John. He's a real good man manager, great with the media as well, and a real gentleman. So absolutely, I think wish him all the best. He is an absolute legend.
Yeah, we wish him well with his retirement. Plenty more time to talk about the FA Cup in a few weeks' time, and just on the Barnet one, I don't think anybody will be more disappointed. I think with the draw with the Portsmouth when they came out, I think it was QPR and 4 massive Premier League teams at the end, and a few of their fans were a little bit disappointed, but nevertheless, another chance in the FA Cup. 4th round. Right, next up, let's talk about some of the managerial changes that happened across the Christmas period. There are quite a few of them. We'll start with Kidderminster, and they've appointed their chairman to come in and manage. And Alex, I didn't know this, but you were telling me before that it happened last season as well.
Yeah, it happened last season, and so he's taken over again this time round. Kidderminster are a funny side. They've got the muscle and the firepower to wipe the floor with a lot of teams, but they get turned over a bit too easily for my liking, and far too often this season they've been losing 3 and 4. So chairman obviously thinks it's time for a change, and he's brought in Russ Penn on the coaching side of things, so obviously a guy who's close to the players and has still been playing this season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm not sure they've quite got it in them to force their way out of that league. Every year I do look at them and think this could be their year, but I just think there are stronger sides in that division, vying for promotion. But I suppose the big managerial change happened shortly after Boxing Day, when Chesterfield, who we've already spoken about at length, lost 4-0 at home to Solihull Moors. You can't lose 4-0 at home on Boxing Day to your nearest rivals, particularly when you've only won 1 game in 25. So as soon as that result came in, you just think to yourself, that's it. I think the board had the patience had run dry, and the fans were really unhappy with it. Not so much with the appointment, but just the style of play that Martin was playing. And I think it was inevitable that would happen. But it's Christmas is a difficult time for managers, isn't it? They've got to manage. The squads are depleted, and there's a lot of points to play for, and there's ultimately going to be quite a few casualties.
Do you feel more pressure at Christmas as a manager with the amount of fixtures, especially like Alex said, if results haven't gone your way into the Christmas period, knowing that there are 4 or 5 games in such a short space of time, and the fact that across the leagues there are a lot of local derbies on Boxing Day and New Year's Day?
I'm sure it is a very stressful time for managers over that period. I never had that thrust upon me in the 15 years down at the Met. I had a chairman that always had, I had his support regardless of results anyway, so it might be worth speaking to.
I was going to say I've asked the wrong person. He's under no pressure over there.
Yeah. I think that if we put it to ourselves, I think are we honest enough to say that at the start of the season, when the fixture schedules come out, we look at that fixtures over Christmas and New Year period? Do we? I think I did in my last season at Tooting, but I didn't in the 2 previous seasons to that, and I think that was down to, if I'm honest, how poorly we'd started the league. So I think that I definitely looked at that fixture schedule and thought, if we could get somebody in at this point, we've got 2 home games here, is that a point that we're going to pick points up from? But I don't know for you two gents as to whether or not you actually looked at it and thought...
doesn't... we talk about, the Christmas period and that, and it could make or break management, but as Gav McPherson said, with me, there's 3 points up on offer for the first game of the season as there are the last and each game over the Christmas period. So each game is as important as the next, but when you have got, say, 4 or 5 games crammed in a short space of time with part-time football players who have got families and maybe going away, and it does put a little bit more pressure on you just to try and get that side out.
There's the psychology behind it though, I find, because I think that Christmas period, it's about it's New Year, isn't it? It sort of denotes change in some way. You're going from one year into the next year. So I think that the psychology side behind it is that some managers, and coaches feel like, if there's ever a point for a change, it could be at Christmas. As we go into January, maybe the chairman's thinking we're going to go in a new direction.
Is it worse to lose than the first game of the New Year? Is that a really bad thing to do as a manager?
Don't lose your Boxing Day game or your New Year's Day game.
You can't lose your Boxing Day game. You can't lose it 4-0 at home like Chesterfield did.
I think a big thing is they really get emphasised because often they're local derbies. and to the fans, they're very, very important games. Boxing Day, New Year's Day, and like Jim rightly says, 3 points against any team is the same against 3 points against your local rivals. However, fans don't see it like that. You know, you can lose to, you know, someone who's geographically nowhere near you, but you lose to your nearest rivals in an emphatic way on Boxing Day. You will immediately be under pressure, because you're under pressure every time you lose a derby game in the immediate aftermath, because the fan base are really, really unhappy.
I do think the National League have got it spot on though. As I said, I went to see Dagenham at home to Orient on Boxing Day, fantastic day, and then literally a few days later, two games later, still over the Christmas period, they're playing the return leg at Orient's ground, and there's going to be that, you know, let's get revenge back so quickly, and the Bostik League for me misses a trick here. You know, I think you should be playing, you know, your nearest rival at that period of time when you can get the most supporters in as well.
Well, I think the Bostik Central, South Central, didn't have a Boxing Day game or a New Year's Day game.
It was optional this year in the Bostik League. At the start of the season, they asked you if you wanted to play the 22nd, the 26th, the 29th and the 1st. You only had to play 2 of those 4 fixtures. And lots of clubs decided they don't want to play Boxing Day.
Why?
Well, I think to let part-time players enjoy Christmas Day. I think
because there wasn't a full-time programme in the Northern Premier League either, which is the weekend of the 29th of December. So, it was.
There was 3,700 at Dagenham, I think it was, on that Boxing Day fixture.
Yeah,
huge crowd.
Yeah.
I think one of the.
You'll always get your biggest crowd on Boxing Day in the derby game, always.
One of the reasons why I think the fixture's slightly changed as well is not only to give that flexibility for maybe volunteers as well that are needed at the club, but worrying about the weather perhaps, and sometimes that congestion that comes in, although we haven't really seen it this year at the moment. There's been no particular period where games have been called off. One last mention on a manager. We didn't get a chance to talk about this on the show. It's a manager we know well. It was before the Christmas period, and Harry Wheeler, Maidstone United, didn't really get a lot of time there. Did that come as a surprise to anybody?
I wasn't surprised. Sadly, I'll admit that, just based on how tough and how serious the National League is, and I just think that making a step up from, you know, Bostik Prem into the National South and only being there for a short space of time before then getting a job at National League level. I don't know what the expectations are or were of Maidstone United, but I'm pretty sure obviously it wasn't to.
Well, quite unrealistic, I'd imagine, because they got rid of Jay Saunders, a guy who'd taken them on 3 promotions.
Tough job to follow.
It's a tough job to follow, tough board to please. I've no doubt Harry's time will come. He's only a young lad, but I did think at the time of that appointment that it was quite a big job. He'd come from Billericay, which it's not really a good barometer for sort of managing how to work there, because he's working with such a ridiculous budget, and the actual circumstances of the job are quite different, so to speak. So I think his time will come. Me and Jody met him last year, didn't we, at our awards, and spent time with him, and he's a bright guy and he's got a bright future. And I just hope that this hasn't kind of stung him and given him a back seat, because he's a bright lad and he's full of confidence, and he was treated terribly at Billericay, so I was really pleased he got that chance, but it's a very, very difficult club to go in at Maidstone, where I think the expectations are slightly higher from where they should be.
It's tough situations. I've actually lived that situation, a meteoric rise. I went from the Ryman League to the National League at Welling when I was similar age to Harry, and I came in after Jamie Day, who was a club legend. Harry's come in after Jay Saunders, who's a club legend. And I think that people are waiting for you to fail. So the first sign of a poor result or a poor playing style, they're really on you. And Harry, unfortunately, made the same error that I made, perhaps, and I don't mean this disrespectfully because I'm talking from my own experience, an inexperience of dealing with the media. He reportedly made some comments that the mess was caused by Jay Saunders. He'd kind of left the mess, and the Maidstone fans just turned on him. You can't say that about a club legend, and from that point it was a matter of time before he was going to go. Unless he won every game, he was going to go, and I felt for him because I was in that situation. I made a comment about the Welling fans and it got really negative really quickly, and he'll learn from it, because I learned from it. but it's just where do you have to go to rebuild?
Yeah.
I had to drop down to Haybridge, which was 3 levels below. Hopefully Harry will maybe get another opportunity at National South or something like that, because it's a long way to climb back up. But yeah, like Alex says, he's a bright lad, he's educated football-wise.
What do we think about, and we didn't mention this, we looked at the table at the bottom at Maidstone, their chances of survival?
Well, they've picked up a couple of good results with the caretakers, which is always worrying, because they're the same people who were there with Harry. So what were they not doing to get those results? Yeah. I think it's going to be tough for Maidstone.
Yeah, I agree, but I think there'll be a lot of movement down there. But I think it will be tough for Maidstone. The club I worry for is Aldershot. I really do worry for them, because they've lost that sort of click that they had last year, where they played really good football, got it down, got it on the deck, and could tear even the best teams to shreds. But they've lost that now, and Gary Waddock looks like a guy who's kind of almost outgrown the job, or
is he regretting maybe not? I'm sure he's had other opportunities.
Well, I think he's taken them to the playoffs for the last 2 seasons. It's his second stint there. He's taken him into the Football League already. Has he outgrown the job? I just wonder if a Football League club, League 2 club, comes in for him, whether he'll see that as his moment to go. And I'm not sure what state the finances are in. It was only a month ago that they were naming one sub on the bench. That doesn't send good signals to the fans or to the players who can't get in the side. So I do really worry for Aldershot. And the other team is Chesterfield, who we've mentioned umpteen times tonight. John Sheridan's got to go in there, and he's got to turn it around quickly, because sinking ship, that they could go down fast.
It's not just players for Chesterfield either, is it? It seems like a whole sort of personality makeover, but there's a lot of work to be done off the football pitch as well as on it. And I'm pretty sure that what's going on off it is impacting the results on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll follow the National League, the North and the South, with great interest for the rest of the season, I'm sure. Right, let's have a look at the non-league team of the day, or the team of the week, as we like to call it, looking at it a little bit later. We'll start with you, Alex, I think, to have a look at the players that you've chosen. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Mitch Walker in goal. I think he put in a man of the match performance, and Jody mentioned Dover before. They're on a serious climb. Andy Hessenthal has got them playing really solid football, keeping clean sheets. They've become really hard to beat, and at the heart of that is having a really good goalkeeper. And the centre halves in there, Carl Piagiani, scored 2 goals at the weekend, kept a clean sheet at Leyton Orient. I think our reporter gave him a 9. So that goes without saying. And Will Evans scored an equaliser against for Chesterfield, then went between the posts and saved what would have been a winning penalty for Ebbsfleet. So Mitch Walker, Piagiani and Will Evans forming a pretty solid defensive line.
Obviously 2 massive goals from Jack Powell, Maidstone to win 2-1, could prove vital to their survival hopes. And I should mention Liam Gordon, teenage wing back for us at Dagenham. We were 3-0 down after half an hour. He scored one of the goals, great finish to get us back in it, and then he actually put us in front. I think they're his first 2 goals for the club, and I'm pleased to see him getting the team of the day, because it means a lot to young players.
I think that off the back of our team of the year last year, sort of drawn to Craig Eastman's inclusion this week, because I think that we had a real difficult job. I think we picked a similar, if not the same system as this when we done team of the year, and he very narrowly missed out. We all sort of applauded him for how well he's been playing this season, but Sutton have had a good end to 2018, and Craig's obviously a fantastic player, so good to see him right in the centre of midfield then.
Yeah, and just sorry Jim, just quickly to mention Cody MacDonald, proven goal scorer in the Football League. And
I was going to mention about Cody. I mean, he's a regular good performer for Ebbsfleet as well. Scored in the game against Chesterfield, so it's good to see him in there as well.
just going to say, Frank, that we didn't quite go with the same system because Jim insisted on 3 at the back, I think, the fines. And that's the team of the day. Don't forget, you can still watch as well our team of 2018 on our YouTube channel. You can have a look and see what you think of the picks that we had, and we can't wait to choose the team of the season come the end of the year. There's a long, long way to go, though, and plenty more action, I'm sure. That's it for us tonight. A big thank you to Frank Wilson, Jody Brown, Jim Cooper, and Alex Narey. Thanks very much for joining us. Don't forget, get involved in the debate all week on social media, official BOTN, and we'll see you again next week.